I mean, like, how they set you up for workforce planning? Like, clearly the military is all about logistics, right?
Well, exactly. So that's exactly how I kind of got my foot in the door there. So where does everybody's definition of workforce planning is? How do we start to build a common understanding of what it is? How do we help leaders and HR practitioners or finance practitioners understand what the benefit of it is, and the steps that we need to take to actually realize those benefits, and then start to kind of build out that operating model.
But before agents existed and before AI was really prevalent, there were also super teams that existed. One of which that I think a lot of people actually have been very curious about over years is what you guys built over at Nike a while back. And we've had a few of those alumni on the podcast before. Nobody ever wants to talk about the Justice League that you guys had over there. But can you tell us the Nike story at all?
Welcome to Directionally Correct, a PLS podcast with Cole and Scott. Today's guest, Ross Sparkman, Head of Workforce Planning at Nutrien and author of Strategic Workforce Planning.
Hey, Directionally Correct fans. If you're looking to stay connected to the podcast, make sure to subscribe to our Substack newsletter, watch our videos on YouTube, or listen to the podcast on your app of choice. This podcast is dedicated to you to help educate and entertain you on how to effectively do people analytics. We are a listener-supported podcast, so please consider becoming a patron. If you'd like to support the podcast by becoming a patron, you can find a link to sign up in the show notes or at patron.podbean.com/directionallycorrect. Thanks for being a listener. All opinions are our own and do not reflect those of any other organization.
The bits about like Live Nation, like they'll sign an artist and then put him on a tour. Well, first they give him like $1 million advance. They put him on a tour in their venues in which the artist has to pay back the advance from the venue. Live Nation controls the ticket price. It could be $100 one day. It could be $10 the next day. They don't get any of the parking. They don't get any of like the alcohol sales. I think they can have their own merch sales.
Oh, wow.
But like they get like hardly anything from these contracts. It's really
insidious. I've heard musicians really hate Live Nation and Ticketmaster.
Yeah.
And I've heard like Zach Bryan always talks about he tries to do, non-Live Nation shows and things like that. But I didn't know that part of what you were saying. I just assumed it was because I feel like it was like ticket gouging or whatever they call it.
Yeah. Price gouging or
price gouging. But I didn't know it was like a whole ecosystem where they control the entire thing.
Well, yeah, they have it end to end, right? And they got you by the short and curlies, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I just wonder, how do you get around that, do you think? Or can you get around it?
I think you have to do something like Louis C.K. He put on his own tour, sold his own tickets, booked his own theaters, this sort of thing.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's really hard in itself. And a band, a comedian's one thing. Like, you can fly around the nation, pick up a microphone, and do your thing.
Yeah, you have to go, like, full farmer mode. You're churning your own butter. To sell like your like there's no way around it.
Like you got at the very least probably a guitar, then you got a drum kit, and like I mean all this sort of shit's got to be shipped everywhere, and you got people like to handle it, the whole deal.
All right,
a lot of mouths to feed. That's all I'm saying.
How's it going, Ross?
Hey, how's it going, gentlemen? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Got you good.
Oh, sweet. Okay, good.
Well, fantastic.
One issue already avoided, any kind of audio or visual challenges.
Well, you can't fix the way we look,
Yeah.
Like that's the one thing they can't fix. I guess you can.
I don't think you would want to fix the way you guys look, would you? I mean, come on, look at this. This is amazing.
I think that's why the plastic surgery industry exists. You can always look a little bit better,
I've never wanted to wear the over the head headphone things. Like it messes with this sweet do. Like I can't do it.
I wish I didn't have to, but it's like I've tried doing these things before, and Scott, I need the mic like you, man. I just,
I mean, this is clearly it's the same microphone that Cole has. I just got tired of like lugging around all the rigging for it, and just took it off the post. And
they sound so good though.
Yeah.
I mean, it just makes you just sound like, I don't know, it almost just sounds smarter speaking into a big mic like that, I feel like.
The audio journey that we've come on with this podcast is incredible.
Yeah, a lot of early learnings.
Well, we actually, if you go back and you look at the early ones, we're wearing headsets like you're wearing right now.
Okay.
Yeah, you really come a long way. But I think, Ross, you made a big move back to Canada recently. What precipitated that?
Oh yeah, so I did. So I'm actually originally from Calgary, and I've been gone. Scott, you just hit it. That's actually, no kidding. That is one of the reasons why I wanted to move back. I'm just a big hockey fan. I mean, we don't have a great team right now, but that's another story. But
Cardy's good. Habano. Come on.
What's that? Yeah. He's good. We're overpaying for him a little bit, but are you guys probably, Scott? Are you probably a Stars fan? You guys are in Texas, right?
Yeah. I grew up. I mean, heck, they moved to Dallas probably like 1992, something like that, and I follow them. I live in Seattle now, and like.
Oh, you live in Seattle? I thought you were in Texas for some reason.
I have a Texas state of mind. I think that's how it goes.
Okay. Yeah, I thought you guys had the Texas deal. We're in a rebuild right now, so it's going to be a while, but it is. So that's one of the reasons I wanted to get back to Calgary. I'm originally from Calgary. I've been gone. I came back for a couple of years over the pandemic, came back a couple of years after I got out of the military, but for the most part, been gone about 25 years. And so my family's all from here. Big hockey fan, and so I've been looking to kind of get back. My fiance, she's from up here. She's got a big family. They're all from here. So for me, I don't know if you guys have ever been to Calgary, but it's right on the doorsteps of the Rocky Mountains. It's just super, just really beautiful. I like the mountains, the outdoors. So been looking for an opportunity to kind of get back and head back up here. And this new role at Nutrien kind of allowed me to do that, which is kind of the other big news, I guess, if you guys didn't know.
That's fantastic. What's Nutrien? What's your new role?
Yeah, Nutrien. So was looking at opportunities up here, and honestly was probably looking for 3 or 4 years. Nutrien it's not a sexy company in the contemporary sense of the term, like a Meta or LinkedIn or some of the other the Nikes of the world that I've worked at, but they are, believe it or not, they're a fertilizing company. So we are feeding the world. So arguably, in terms of the mission-driven organization that I'm working at right now, it's probably one of the most important that I've worked at. But so one of the biggest fertilizer providers to farmers, and they have kind of a full mining operations in potash, nitrogen, phosphate. All global organization all over the world, and they also have a big retail arm. They are actually a company that was formed from Agrium and Potash Corp, which is a Canadian company, about 4 or 5 years ago. So it went through a big merger. Yeah. But it was interesting for this role that I'm in now. Kind of a typical remit of coming in and building out a workforce planning capability. They've just, like a lot of organizations, been kind of going through the highs and lows of growing and then retracting, growing and retracting. And have kind of went through a bit of a transformation as an organization and wanted to get this muscle built out. And then also, and this is something that really was a seller for me, was they're also really big into building out their AI workforce strategy, which is what I spent a lot of my time doing at Walmart, which is my most recent organization. And to be able to come in at the early stage and both build out this workforce planning framework and operating model, but also pair it down with how we're thinking about, an AI workforce strategy is kind of like the sweet spot for me right now. So all things aligned, and here I am in Calgary now. Go Flames.
Go Flames. The days of Joey Nieuwendyk and Theo Fleury.
Joey Nieuwendyk. These are my guys. Those are like happiest day of my life was I still remember it. I was 12 years old. I probably shouldn't say this is the happiest day of my life, but I'll be honest, it's one of the happiest days of my life. And May 25th, 1989, Calgary Flames win the Stanley Cup. Joe Nieuwendyk, centerpiece for that. He went down to Texas, I know, afterwards. But, that's just lifelong Flames fan. I was crying, bawling like I still get teared up when I think about it. And that was the last time we were even we went to the finals one more time. But it's been a long road ever since.
Cole, we got to do a show at the Saddle Dome. Yeah, totally.
You better do it soon, too, because we only got about 2 years left for building a new stadium.
Really?
And so they're going to knock down this. Yeah, we're knocking down the Saddle Dome. And that's going to be another emotional day for me, to be honest. Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense that Nutrien would be located in Calgary. Like the big rodeo there, like all this sort of stuff goes on.
Exactly. They're a big sponsor, to be honest, of the rodeo. That's actually where I first learned about them. They're kind of all over the Stampede. So I used to see Nutrien kind of all over the place. And I was like, oh, I know Nutrien, but I didn't really know what they did. Now I do, obviously, but yeah.
Well, I'm sure your family is super happy to hear that your best day of your life was nothing to do with them.
That really comes out of my mouth too easily. I really have to I have to really be careful the way I say that. But it was very, very happy day. It was a long time ago.
Well, I should have asked you this before, and you said you were a veteran, but I was thinking about it. So were you in the armed forces for Canada or for the United States?
U.S. Yeah. So I guess that's probably a good question. So I actually have dual citizenship. So so I was in the U.S. military, and I joined the U.S. military just because there's more action, more excitement there, I think, than the Canadian.
Wow.
And I'm not talking about going out like Rambo styles, but it was just like more opportunity. I think I wanted to have the chance to kind of go overseas. And there was a lot of educational opportunities in the U.S. military. It still is. And I took full advantage of those. And so when I actually was funny, I drove down to Montana. My grandpa, I was kind of at this inflection point in my life. Like, what are you going to do? And I don't know. He's like, have you ever thought about joining the military? I was like, absolutely not. He's like, well, I've heard the U.S. military is a great way to get your school paid for. So we drove down to Great Falls, and 6 days later, I'm in boot camp.
Oh my God.
And the rest was history. So the short answer there is I was in the U.S. Navy, and kind of stationed all over. But I spent a good 8 years in Japan, stationed over there, which was really cool. So spent a lot of time kind of in the Pacific region, East Asia, learning about that culture, which was just amazing.
I mean, how they set you up for workforce planning? Clearly the military is all about logistics, right?
Well, exactly. So that's exactly how I kind of got my foot in the door there. So I would say that a lot of people don't realize this, but the U.S. military is probably 20 years ahead of a lot of private sector organizations with workforce planning. I mean, think about probably a 2 million plus workforce that's been moving people around, everybody around every 2 or 3 years for decades. And so I actually did a stint in what they call manpower planning, and it was towards the end of my military career. And I was at the time working on my MBA, and I was starting to think about how do I start to position myself in the private sector with my military experience. And I was doing my MBA, and we were kind of doing our kind of org effectiveness kind of HR classes, and there was this kind of topic on it. And this was way back, 2000, late 2000s. And I started thinking, I kind of do that in my kind of current job. How can I start to just really sell this? And this was kind of really, I know it's workforce planning has been around for a while, but this was around when it was starting to kind of get a little more steam. And I was like, well, maybe I can start to position myself as being somebody that's done this before. And I was able to get on at Deloitte doing management consulting, and sort of take that MBA and that military experience, and then learn, how these big four consultancies have all these frameworks built out and are thinking about workforce planning, and kind of match that with my experience, and then start to build my brand and my experience. So that's how the momentum got going with me.
Well, thank you for your service in the Navy, first of all. But second of all, I'm curious. So you recently released the second version of your book, Strategic Workforce Planning, and now you're going to this green field situation at Nutrien to kind of implement a new operating model. And obviously you've come up through a variety of organizations, not just the military or Deloitte, but others as well, kind of being a trailblazer in the workforce planning space. How do you take all that knowledge and in 2025 apply it to do, cutting edge work?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think you guys will appreciate it. Every organization in this kind of workforce planning, people analytics space, they're at different maturity levels. And I think one of the things that I have learned in my experience, and I even write about in the second edition, is, you can come in and have all the experience in the world, but you still have to be humble in your approach. You have to understand the business. You have to meet the business where they're at, assess what would work sort of short term and longer term, and develop your strategy and approach appropriately. So my approach really here has been where could we go with this? What's the art of the of the impossible? What could we do different in the short term what are some of the obstacles between where we're at now, whether it's through capabilities, whether it's through technology, products, data, that we have to sort of overcome to get to this sort of future state. And moreover, like, how do we educate our leaders and the folks working across the organization around even what workforce planning is. That's the approach that I'm really taking. And that last piece is really important because it's, common theme that I found is there's a lot of different definitions of what workforce planning is. And they're all usually right. But a lot of people don't, right? And to an extent, a lot of folks who I don't think are able to connect all the dots from an end-to-end full operating model. I call it the workforce planning ecosystem between like the headcount budgeting planning process at the start of the year that kind of finance goes on, through position management, through kind of managing short-term operational workforce planning, all the way to that kind of big, sexy, like how do we start to build out, scenario modeling and think about all the factors that we need to build out, sort of an optimized workforce.
Oh my God, this sounds like the military already, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And so what I like to do is just like, where does everybody's, definition of workforce planning is, how do we start to build a common understanding of what it is? How do we help leaders and HR practitioners or finance practitioners understand what the benefit of it is and the steps that we need to take to actually realize those benefits, and then start to kind of build out that operating model?
I've been in other organizations where like they'll just kind of like throw people into different roles, right? And like one of them at a previous company was to like essentially throw interns or people at mid-career just into the workforce planning area. It's like, this seems really dangerous.
Yeah.
This seems really dangerous. Like, how can we like separate those that? What are the best practices here? Like, what would make for a good? Because everyone could do it, but not everyone can do it well. I think that's where I'm going here.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that what I would see as being, and it touches on sort of a little bit what I just discussed, but what I would see as being the difference between somebody that is really experienced in this space and able to come in and make an impact versus somebody who was kind of just put into a role.
Yeah.
Is, first of all, you really do need to take more of a systems thinking approach. Okay, so you're going to have to level up a little bit to say, well, what are we trying to do with this to benefit the organization, which then requires you to think about, well, what's the point of the organization, right? And putting my MBA hat on, well, if it's to drive shareholder value, how then and how do you drive shareholder value? Reducing costs, being more profitable, making more money, right? So what does that mean then in terms of workforce planning? Well, there's a big element of obviously the people component of the balance sheet, right? It's a huge cost. To be able to execute any strategy that a leader wants to enact in their org to help realize that broader corporate mission, you need to have the right capability and the right team, the right level, the right mix in terms of the workforce, and you need obviously the right skills. But what you need to be able to do then as somebody that's coming new to the space is to be able to connect that all down to what workforce planning actually can do to help drive that impact. So whether it's providing better insight, and helping to track against a budget, whether it's identifying the right skills and the right that are in place today and what skills need to be in the future, whether it's building out those 2 or 3 year scenario models, to say, well, if commodity price X went up this much, what would that mean in terms of the resources that we need? Whether it's thinking about what the contractor versus FTE mix is to build you more flexibility. Are we buying, borrowing, building? Is it what's the role of AI?
There's no shortage, right?
There's no shortage. Like I can just keep going and going and going. So I think to the extent you have a good, solid understanding of the business, and how that connects to this end-to-end workforce planning process, and then there's specific steps that need to be taken, and the quick wins and long wins are all really important.
Yeah, you've talked about this a little bit already, but I really want to hit home the point. Why does workforce planning matter to the C-suite, and why does it matter right now?
So this is an interesting one, Cole. I was on David's Green's podcast a couple of weeks ago, and we were sort of talking about this space, and I made an observation to him. I've obviously been in this space for about 20 years now, and I've sort of seen the evolution over the last 20 years. I'd say in the last 2 to 3 years, I have had more interactions with C-suite, board level members on workforce planning that I ever had before. And why I think that is a couple of reasons. I think obviously coming out of the pandemic, I think a lot of leaders were, burned a little bit by some of the growth that they went after. There was a lot of really bad workforce planning. If I look at the pandemic, it was just like, let's just grow with no real strategy behind why that growth would be happening, rather than just growing because, we're making good money right now. So I think a lot of leaders were snake bitten a little bit, or are snake bitten a little bit, and want to start to think more strategically about that. But I do think that the other reason is what everybody's talking about, and I think we all know that we were going to go down this route at some point, that the impact of AI on the workforce. And I think we're at this really big inflection point right now for a lot of organizations where it's been discussed a lot. There's a lot of excitement, but there's not a lot of organizations that have actually realized the benefit of the technology. And there's a need then to say, okay, if we're actually going to benefit from this technology, we need to become more productive, and we need to be able to start quantifying that productivity, or we need to actually start, and we at the same time potentially we need to start taking some of the efficiency gains out of the workforce and get some savings. And so what I see happening is like questions around like, how do we actually do that? Right? Like, what does that mean in terms of our workforce strategy, our workforce plan? How long will it take to be able to start to really, realize the potential benefits? What does it mean then in terms of an actual strategy that we need to take today? And I think what a lot of leaders are not necessarily thinking about, that they need to start thinking about, that I've been having discussions with, is the time is right now to develop your AI workforce strategy. And by that I mean, are we actually going to riff, yank out parts of the workforce? Is that the right move? Are we going to just give certain roles more work? Are we going to just, maybe we're not going to backfill certain roles, but then hire for other types of roles? Are we just going to go on a hiring pause? Like, what do we actually need to do today to ensure that once we are actually ready to turn the switch on, whether it's agentic AI or it's the right tools, like actually be ready and have a strategy in place? And I think it's sort of went from this world of hype and like to this world now, like the board wants to know, like, what's the plan here? When am I going to see an impact on my balance sheet? When am I either going to start making more money, or am I going to start saving more money? And we want a tangible plan. And I think that what I'm seeing is I'm being involved in those conversations, and I can add a perspective. And it really aligns with this concept of like strategic workforce planning, if you're thinking of, digital AI agents as being part of the workforce. So those are some of the reasons and things that I've been seeing, and why I think that this work has been elevated a little bit more. I don't know if you guys saw that article by McKinsey. David Green shared it on his website around just the importance of strategic workforce planning right now. It's super salient and it's like spot on.
Well, it's like the flip side of the coin that everyone's, worried that AI is going to take their job, right? It's just like the company's perspective in that way. Like, if obviously, like we're at an inflection point, as you said. Like, what kind of timeline might we be dealing with? Obviously, some people are ahead, some people are behind.
Yeah,
not every org is the same, or industry.
Yeah, you know what? This is, Scotty. This is where I think. The timeline that kind of comes to my mind is probably still like a 2-year timeline.
Yeah.
To where we would actually be able to truly leverage the technology. The technology is there today. And I know, like Sam Altman always says, like, today's model is the worst model you're ever going to work with. The technology is there today. Like the agents are smart enough. The technology is smart enough. What's not there, and this is where I spent a lot of time at Walmart, and how I'm already starting to think about what we need to do at Nutrient, is to be able to, like, there's two types of, like, you can think about like AI in terms of actually a couple different ways. First of all, there's how are we actually going to use AI to enhance our service, our products, our value to the customer, right? So that's one piece. Then the other piece, though, is how are we going to use AI to be more productive with our workforce? And so I'm kind of playing more in that space. But then within that space, there's two other ways to think about this. There's this sort of horizontal and vertical aspect. The horizontal is, what are the tools and capability that we're putting into the hands of our employees to allow them to do their work better every day? I think that's the stuff that's really evolved a lot over the last year. I think everybody's starting to get more comfortable with it. There's probably questions around, okay, well, are people using this and then just slacking off for the rest of the day, 90% of the day or whatever? I think there's probably some of that. But then there's the vertical piece, which is when we start talking about agentic AI. And that's where the real opportunity is, right? Where we're actually building a workforce of agents that are working autonomously with each other and with the workforce, the human workforce, on workflows. And that's the big, like, whoa, now we're starting talking
scary,
about,
right?
That's where it gets scary, and that's where the actual opportunity is. But to do that, again, the technology is there. And for certain, it definitely will be there in 2 years. But the challenge that we have to do, and this is where, we talk about the role of HR and this really being a cross-functional, body of work, is we kind of have to go and understand all the different jobs in the organization and their, the potential for impact for AI, whether it's augmentation, complete replacement. But to be able to truly build up the workflows, we actually have to go in and do a task level analysis of every job. Right?
Everything from it's great, like full circle. Like you can go so far in life with just mission, vision, and strategy.
Yeah.
And on the other end of the spectrum, job analysis.
You have to do it. Like,
job analysis.
And I can already start. I'm seeing these questions from users. Why can't we just do this? Well, the technology and like our tech function, our IT function, our technology function is like saying the right things. They're saying this is not a technology challenge. This is a people challenge. This is that we have to hold hands and understand what the work is, and then develop thresholds on what's acceptable in terms of like the types of decisions and autonomy that we're going to give the agents, and actually start to then build the technology into those workflows, which is really challenging. Now, I will say this though. What I've been spending a lot of time doing with the technology, and think it's a really good use case for the technology, is, 3 or 4 years ago, to be able to scale a day in the life of task-based analysis for 6,000 different roles across the organization would be any consultancy's dream project. That's right. Like a 10-year engagement for like a consultancy. But I think it's a good opportunity actually for AI. There's a lot out there that is relatively common across jobs and the tasks and the work that they do, and you can, using leveraging AI, get a pretty good baseline framework in place for how you would then start to build into the agents into these workflows. So that's, I think, in terms of what I would am recommending as being like, how do you do this in a scalable fashion? Like, let's use the technology that as a starting point.
Yeah.
And that's did a bunch of that at Walmart, spent months validating it, and it does seem to be pretty accurate, much more efficient than going out and trying to bring in a bunch of consultants and watch folks. God, yeah. Right? Can you imagine?
Well, yeah. You're getting into a space. I'm talking about this constantly. I just gave a presentation at the IPAC conference called "Job Analysis at Scale," and it's so weird that the most boring topic in all of this work is now becoming the sexiest topic because it's so relevant because of everything that's happening.
Right.
It's so foundational.
Yeah. And say job architecture, like we're going through this big job architecture, and right off the bat, I'm sitting here like, this is a kind of a big deal actually. Like, let's not just like gloss over this like a check mark and like an HR transformation that like some little team's doing somewhere. Like we need to be really, really thoughtful about our job architecture and understanding how that is going to, again, augment the workforce and what that means. Like, let's not glaze over this. This is a moment to kind of get this right, because it's like you said, it kind of is a sexy thing right now.
Yeah.
So what are we looking at? Like super teams, massive teams?
No. So I think it's going to be, depending upon the roles, and you guys probably would agree. I think there's going to be new roles, new teams. So think, prompt engineers, et cetera. I think there'll be the same number. There'll be, if you count the agents as part of the teams will be way bigger, and they will be super teams. I think that you'll just see a lot less folks. In the ratio of humans to agents will be much more skewed towards the agent side. I'll give you an example of just how I'm, truly thinking about this, and take this for what it's worth. This is my opinion. This is kind of the direction that I'm going. But So I mean, part of my remit is to kind of build out this framework for how we do workforce planning. And you start to kind of right off the bat, you start to go, well, is it a COE? Is it a hub and spoke model? Right off the bat, there's a big capability gap. You know, HR business partners don't necessarily have the capability. And how do you scale my knowledge across the organization? In the past, I would probably say, well, you need to hire X number of resources. You need to kind of build out a team, and we need to sort of have this interaction model. But where I'm at now is I'm thinking 2 years ahead to my earlier point and saying, well, is that something that we really need a team to do? Or would it make more sense building out a co-pilot that has all of my experience, all of my background, everything that I could do at the fingertips of maybe not even HR business partners, maybe your leaders, to where I can prompt this agent to say, hey, give me 3 scenarios for this site location, factoring in all these economic variables, develop me a forecast, rank them in terms of probability impact, just on and on and on and on and on. Which again, like that's the stuff that I've done and my teams have done. Does it make sense to build processes and work around that, or does it just make sense to acknowledge like this is the world now? Maybe we just start to design something like that, a co-pilot that we can put in the arms of the leaders. Like could it have been a team of 20 or 10, in this space, or does it make more sense to just have one person that's driving the strategy and putting the technology in the hands of the leaders and the HR partners? That's the direction I'm going. Yeah. And like I said, we're at an inflection point. Let's see where we're at 2 years from now. But that's where I see the technology headed and the work headed. That's just one example, right?
And that's why I'm here today to announce Ross GPT.
And here's the first prompt. I've been having these conversations, and it can be difficult, a little bit uncomfortable. To an extent, I'm talking myself out of a job, but at the same time, I've also done a lot of, based on what I've been, doing in this space. It's clear that the folks that are on board earlier and that understand the technology and that are engaged in building out solutions like this, and thinking from a leadership perspective, like how do we work with this technology? Like these are the traits that are going to be rewarded in the future, and that leaders are going to have. And I think that you're going to see 2 types of schools of thoughts here: the people that resist it and nope, it's not going to happen, and maybe they're right. We don't know. We'll see in a couple of years. Or the people that are let's see. Let's think about 2 years. Let's leapfrog where we're at today. And I think there's more job security in the latter than taking the resistor approach.
Sure. I mean, it's definitely going to happen. It's just like how soon and what it's going to look like, right?
Like what it's going to look like, exactly. Yeah. Did you guys read that essay that Sam Altman dropped about 3 weeks ago?
No, what was that?
On his blog. I thought it was a really. I'll ping you guys the link, but he dropped an essay, and I think it was about 3 weeks ago. It was one of the most interesting, revolutionary reads I've ever. Again, maybe it's a little bit hyperbole, whatever. One of the things that he said was, if you look back 100, 150 years ago, and you asked, the farmers working out in the field, what we do, what white collar knowledge work does, they would laugh at you and say, "That's not actual work." Like, that's not work. That's not working. What is that? He says that in 10 years, we're going to look at the type of work that we do and just laugh. Like you're going to be walking down a hallway with like a clipboard, like, "Oh, wow, that's a good machine. That's good work." Like not really doing much of anything, like the quality of life and just like the ease with which we're still going to work because we're going to need money, and there's just going to be a justification for it. But it could just become dramatically silly. I think that's where Sam's mind goes. Like it's like we're going to keep working, we're going to keep making money. We're just not going to have to actually do much of the hard lifting, similar to what like a farmer would think about like 150 years ago. Yeah. Like you guys don't do work. You sit there and look at these weird screens all day, and So I think that could be that's a pretty interesting way to think about it, maybe.
Sure. Well, I think. Sam Altman's opinions aside, going back to kind of like, are you going to have a super team to do this type of work? It sounds like the answer is it's going to be a combination of fewer humans and more agents. if you're not kind of a resistor, but the super team will exist nonetheless.
That's what I think.
But, before agents existed and before AI was really prevalent, there were also super teams that existed. One of which that I think a lot of people actually have been very curious about over years is what you guys built over at Nike a while back. We've had a few of those alumni on the podcast before. Nobody ever wants to talk about the Justice League that you guys had over there. But can you tell us the Nike story at all?
Oh, yeah. So I know, and I was funny because I know Ryan Hammond. I'm sure that probably Richard Rosenau has been on there. I haven't had a chance to see their episodes. I kind of wanted to watch. Nike was a good, how to put this? You could say it was an experiment that didn't have necessarily the leadership support that it required to be fully successful. So backstory here is, 4 or 5 years ago at Nike, Tony Trong got hired, who's been in the space for a long time too. We kind of all know each other. I don't know if some of you guys know Tony. He got hired in by Kim Lupo, who was our total rewards leader at Nike, to build out this super team. And the context that was going on at Nike at the time was there was a massive transformation happening in Nike on multiple levels. So they were shifting to a direct-to-consumer strategy. They had just brought in a new CEO, John Donahoe, who was the ex-CEO of Bain Consulting, and had a very consulting mindset way of thinking about things. And he quickly set the tone for this transformation that was going to be direct-to-consumer. He kind of built out his leadership team and had a really strong vision of what that would look like. Part of that was also an HR transformation that happened, full end-to-end HR transformation, like proper HR transformation, Workday implementation, the full gamut. Tony brought on this team and Kim brought on this team, and it was basically Ryan Hammond, myself, Richard Rosenau, Arturo Aguiar, Andrea Galise, who all have a lot of experience in this space to build this team. And we were excited. And honestly, the experience in working with those guys was just unbelievable. They had so much. I learned so much from them. What unfortunately happened was about 2 months after we got going, Kim ended up leaving. Kim Lupo, who was the one who kind of brought this team on. And we were sitting, and what she owned was, she owned Total Rewards and she owned operations. And as part of this transformation, she ended up leaving and going to Walmart, which I just worked with her at Walmart again. So I've had the opportunity to work with her. She is somebody that's very forward thinking and she gets it. But she left and we brought on a new leader, and this work and this vision and the scope of what this work was to be dramatically shifted. We ended up sitting in HR operations as part of this new HR transformation that was really being led by some of the big consulting firms. And it was just unfortunate because as this transformation kind of unfolded, we were really playing off of a consulting playbook. And again, it's not surprising. John Donahoe came from consulting, and he was a big fan of consultants. And I'm a Deloitte guy. I'm a consultant, so I know consulting. I also know the limitations of consulting, but it was a really interesting dynamic because it really felt like we didn't have a ton of agency over, how this strategic workforce planning and people analytics function should and could be part of the HR operating model. We went from being like this big kind of shiny, like this is the future, to in a matter of a couple of weeks being like, try to get it where you fit in. And I think that, and so we were sort of at the mercy of these consultants, and there was two, they were everywhere. Again, not a slam against consultants. I was a consultant before, but you had them doing the Workday implementation, the HR operating model implementation. You had and there was 14 different consulting. You had boutique firms, you had the big three, you had the big five. There were so many consultants, which again, just from my perspective on total cost of the workforce, it was insane. But I think it became clear that we really enjoyed working with each other. But at some point, it started to, I think, just feel everybody on the team that we would be valued I think, more valued at other organizations. And so I think all of us ended up leaving. So there's nobody there left. It was a great, now again, amazing experience, a huge learning. The chance to work with all those guys was just incredible. To go through this transformation and to really force yourself to think about some of the things that when you're going through an HR transformation and you're sitting as part of a people analytics or strategic workforce planning team that you need to consider to be successful was just a huge learning curve. That's why when I was speaking earlier around some of the things I would want to consider, we just learned a ton from all that stuff. So it was actually a really good experience. I think the vision of where we started to where we ended, there was just a lot of disruption with the transformation, and it just was one of those things that kind of got mixed up a little bit, and we all sort of just moved on.
No, I appreciate you sharing that. Like that's.
Is that the first time have you never had a conversation with Richard? This is my take also too. So definitely talk to some of the other guys, but that was sort of my take on sort of how it kind of played out.
Well, the weird thing about being on the outside when that happened was every other company was going, "Oh shit, do we have to create a super team too? Is there going to be anybody left?" Yeah. And so it was a very interesting time, and I really appreciate you sharing. Scott, are you ready for the confusion matrix, or you have one other thing you want to chat about?
Yeah, I thought that you were going to talk about the time at Nike that you saw Tiger Woods walking around Beaverton or something like that. That's the story I want to hear.
There's a lot. Actually, I never had a good. I was working remote. That was another thing that I think probably made it a little bit more challenging. I never got any of the good. Everybody had a Michael Jordan bumped into Michael Jordan story or a Tiger Woods story. Literally everybody. And Michael Jordan's probably the one person where I would I'm a little bit starstruck by. I'd want an autograph, and I never got a good chance to see. Although Drake used to come there a lot, so Drake was probably the biggest star that I saw.
I've been invited there a couple of times. It's a really magical campus. It's pretty wild.
Cool. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah.
The thing I miss from those days, Ross, is you and your Nike jumpsuit pictures.
So this is a Tony Trong thing, and so there's a story about Nike. It is a real thing that you have to be decked out in Nike. Yep. Do not show up
100%
in anything but Nike. And so I was that's what Tony sent us as all the clothes I was wearing in that picture. Tony sent us in our kind of onboarding package. It was just awesome. We got so much good Nike swag. Yeah, and the discounts are a real thing there. It's just insane. I got so much good Nike swag and gear now. It was worth it working there alone just for the Nike product I got.
That's fantastic.
All right, you want to do this little confusion matrix?
Yeah, let's do some confusion matrix.
The confusion matrix.
And I will say, as someone that used to build gas stations, we don't really do real work, honestly. That's fucking hard work, dude.
Come on now. Exactly.
Okay, we'll do a little research roulette. So your job is, I'm going to present 3 different article titles. Your job is to identify the real one. 2 are fake, 1 is real.
Okay.
And everyone's playing here. here. And unfortunately, I have the lights on in this room, so I can't really see my notes. But okay, so it's going to be an adventure. Okay, number 1, advanced vertical mobility in domestic felines. Why cats land on their feet. So cats landing on their feet.
I feel like you used that one before.
I have not.
Okay, well, let's see.
There are common themes, though. Well, maybe it's the same one.
I mean, to me, it's definitely a question I've always pondered, so I can't imagine if it's something that I pondered that there hasn't been a lot of researchers that have pondered it. So I say yes, real.
Cool. Yeah, cool.
Okay, well, let's keep going. I want to hear the other
2, involuntary facial responses to citrus stimuli. Why people make weird faces when eating lemon.
All right. What's number
3?
3?
Someone actually study this. Okay, 3rd, consequences of erudite vernacular utilized irrespective of necessary problems with using long words needlessly.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so
please don't make me repeat that one.
It's erudite long words. It's cats landing on their feet was the first one, and then what was the second one?
Involuntary faces.
Involuntary faces. Okay. So Ross, which one do you think is real? It's 1 real, 2 are false, correct?
Correct.
1 real. Okay. Oh, I thought it was 2 real, 1 false. 1 real, 2 false. Oh, this feels like a trick one because
so what's cats falling? involuntary spaces and using.
It feels intuitive that the cat's falling would be true, but I feel like it's got to be a trick question. So I'm going to rule that one as false. I feel like the involved. I think that it's a kind of a crapshoot between the weird faces and the long words. I'm going to say that the weird faces is also false, and that there's some people that have been sitting around and wonder why people use these big words. Is it something to do with an ego thing, or I don't know. That's my guess.
Okay, you're going with the long words, Cole.
What say
you? What say you?
I still think we used the cat one before in the past, and so I think it's a fake one. I actually agree with Ross. I wasn't intrigued by the second one, so I think it's the long words.
Both of you are correct.
Oh,
both of you are correct.
Sweet.
Nailed it. I didn't write down any of the details of it, like the journal of the year or anything like that, but it is real. Like, I did see a clip, and I pulled it off of Google Scholar. But congratulations.
Yeah. Do I get a prize for that?
Yeah. Yes. Cole will make you a social media tile that you can share with all your friends and family.
Yes. Yeah. When you guys had this confusion matrix kind of thing going on, I was expecting that I was going to get tested and have to build some sort of like a classification model in Python in real time and like show that I was like some sort of like super like ML nerd or something like that. So I appreciate that it wasn't as difficult as doing something like that.
It's just a great people analytics term, right?
Yeah. I think we're proving what a double entendre is. So,
like, are there CEOs or anybody that you've ran into within C-suite that's like too verbose, not necessarily verbose, but use these like long words needlessly and like very, they obfuscate themselves in this way.
So Jeff Weiner, who was the CEO of LinkedIn, he did it so elegantly. Like he was. I don't know if you guys have never had a chance to listen to Jeff Weiner like speak. Like, he is mesmerizing. Like, if you want to, so he uses a lot of big words, but he does it in a way that's like, Jeff, of course. I'm not even going to try to say that word, but yes, it makes sense. Like, and then you're looking it up and just, he was just absolutely just a super elegant speaker, and just great if you ever get a chance to see him.
I think this is the AI future, like the ability to communicate and connect with people in a very personal way is going to take on incredible value.
I think so, absolutely. I mean, again, if you think about like what will be valued, in terms of like, employees, it is going to be this. It's going to be whatever emotional intelligence, whatever you want to call it. I think it's going to be huge, and it's going to be something that separates. Because at the end of the day, there are certain things that are just human. We do want to be able to connect. So you could have we're going to still be working there. I mean, fingers crossed, right? It's not going to be machines running the world. So I think you're absolutely right, Scotty.
Our super team of agents are just going to realize that we are the weak link and be like, get out of here.
We don't need any of you guys. You guys can just walk around the hall or whatever. But
we got this. We got this without you.
Yeah. I knew this one guy. The only big word he knew was asinine. And so,
it's a good one though.
So every time he would get mad, he'd be like, "This is asinine. This is so asinine."
The one that I never used before and this is probably not even a big word or whatever, but you don't use in the military. We didn't use a lot of big words, I'd say, and so I did have to kind of like build up my big word vocabulary, and I just bifurcate was one for me.
Bifurcate, that's a good one.
I was always like, bifurcate. Yeah. How can we bifurcate this? I got a little bit overboard, excessive with using bifurcation.
Well, let's bifurcate the end of this segment and go into the nerdery. How about that?
Sounds good. Let's do that.
The nerdery.
All right. Where you want to go, dude?
You want me to kick us off, Scott?
Go for it. Yeah. Right. Yours is actually interesting.
As opposed to the other one. Well, we'll find out if it's interesting or not. So the article I've got is called The Renaissance Period for Organizational Research. So this is by, again, we've covered a few of his things lately. Paul Spector has a little magazine that he's been putting together. And he talks about, which I thought was interesting, he talks about kind of the golden era of rock music was the 60s and the 70s with Led Zeppelin and a few other artists that came out in that period. And then he talks about how it happened in the natural sciences in the 20th century, in art, Salvador Dali and Albert Einstein, a few folks. And he said, what is the kind of the Renaissance period for organizational research? And he posits it was happening in kind of the 1980s, when some of the key concepts like organizational stress, organizational health psychology, counterproductive work behaviors, organizational system behaviors, and work-family conflict were all kind of some long poles in the tent of what was going on in the field. And he lists a bunch more examples, but it was probably too many to list here. But really, it's more of a commentary of what he says on the modern malaise. So, one point he's been hitting on lately, and I've been reiterating, is just that all that's happening, it seems, in the organizational research space is just people adding more complex statistical tests to models, but the underlying theory itself, or the interestingness of the research, has actually somewhat diminished in this period. And so I wanted to get you guys' thoughts on this. What do you think about the Renaissance period for organizational research?
Yeah, I would actually tend to agree with that. And here's my reference point. If I look back on all the research that I was doing for my books, I feel like a lot of it that was just like foundational things that I was referencing or citing in the book were from papers that were kind of in the 80s and early 90s. I actually wanted to have more modern, citations and research, but there was just like some stuff with David Ulrich and Peter Capelli and John Boudreau. Like a lot of that stuff was just foundational to how I think about strategic workforce planning and modern HR. So it feels like that's probably tangentially in the same space.
Yeah. I think you're right.
So I think I would agree.
Yeah, I mean, early on in a field, there's a bunch of low-hanging fruit, right? Lot of big chunks that you can uncover, and of course that's going to make a big impact. You think about theorists like Karl Popper. Like once you have a paradigm shift, like we're in one right now, perhaps even late stage. We'll have another one, and then we'll be able to add new value that way. But now the whole way to get your name out there, or like even try to like explain the remaining variants, is to go more complicated and less easily understood.
Yeah, and which is exactly, I think, what we like to the point of the paper, what we're kind of seeing, right? Yeah.
Well, and I mean, I think we covered this probably 6 or 7 months ago, but somebody had posted the original IO psychology text from Hugo Munsterberg that came out in like 1920. Yeah. And I went back and actually read like probably 2/3 of the book. It still holds up. All the low-hanging fruit that Scott mentioned was all identified in like 1920.
Yeah.
And people are still talking about it today. Honestly, it was a really good book. It was a much easier read than most of the academic articles we read now.
Yeah.
And I was like, why can't we write like this anymore? It was fantastic.
Plain language, because there's not like crazy vernacular. Right?
Right, there you go, right? Yeah.
Not crazy vernacular. And like, you'll hear this in different organizations as well. It's like, well, like all the research you're talking about is external. That doesn't apply to us. You're still fucking humans. Everyone still has the same sort of like things going on. Yes, it's going to apply.
Absolutely. Exactly.
Well, Scott, which one do you want to go to next?
We'll do the pivot penalty.
All right.
I found this wildly interesting. So we covered some time ago the idea that if you to advance your career, you like essentially explore the different environment and then hit on something really good. Think of like Pablo Picasso. Like early on in his career, like he was like a Dutch master, like very sort of realistic paintings. And later on, he became the abstract that we're all like sort of familiar with. This article, they assigned cosine similarities to the works of, this is like 2 million articles from 1970 to 2015, something like that. And they identified the career paths of different folks, and they hit on something a little bit different. So researchers that switched genres within their own work corpus had lower impact. So the lowest switching pivot work had about a 7.4% chance of having a very high citation count. The very high pivot ranking for internal work had about a 2.2% chance of achieving the same mark. So essentially what he's saying is like, if you're like making a big jump in the field, like the chances that you're going to make an impact are much lower. And like they theorize that it's about, tapping a new audience or getting into a new journal that has their own sort of things, that sort of thing. But it happens at all career stages, and even when like certain things like COVID like push people into different sort of areas. Sort of an interesting take.
I thought this one was really interesting. And if I was to kind of think about this in terms of, again, like talent management or career mobility, if I'm understanding this right, basically what we're saying is we should probably rethink this concept of specialization versus generalization. I mean, again, from an organizational performance perspective, right? Like I took this to basically say that it's basically saying stick to what you're good at.
Yeah, it's gonna be hard to like convey what the new field that you got to like learn.
Yeah,
you become a novice all of a sudden.
Yeah, which I mean, I guess that makes sense, right? I thought that was a pretty interesting one, and it intuitively it makes sense. It's just, is there a world where you can like are there more real world applications from a HR kind of like job performance management perspective, or do you think that would just be like truly in academia and research?
Yeah, I always go back to the Charlie Munger quote: "If you show me the incentives, I'll show you the outcome." And I think about this in terms of academic research. If the incentives say stay in your lane, only find like one idea and then publish on it for the rest of your career, that, if you want to get tenure, if you want to be well known, you've got to find kind of, again, your tent pole research topic and then just milk that thing forever.
Yeah.
The reality is what that leads to is kind of this collective action problem, which is science gets worse.
Yeah. I mean, you're right.
Because you need kind of these boundary spanning research topics that bring around paradigm shifts, which I think aligns with kind of Paul Spector's point from earlier, which is, we had our glory years in the past. How can we recapture the glory years? Well, people have to get out of their lane, but all the incentives are telling them to stay in their lane. And so I think it's just an issue of incentives versus the outcomes we want to see.
It's like, are you making the right combinations for the new research and this sort of thing? Like, it's the previous work we've seen is shown that new combinations of work produce the biggest outcomes, but that doesn't always hit, right? Yeah. And if you're just like changing areas, which I've been one to do, honestly, in the various things I've published, it's harder to like make your name there.
Yeah, I mean, I hear that a lot. I try to publish articles about everything under the sun, and people are like, Cole, if you just talk about the same topic 5 or 6 times in a row, maybe it would become like get a lot of traction. But I've already moved on 7 months ago to a new topic because I just crave that variety, and so there's definitely a trade-off here.
Yeah, I was going to ask Cole, do you think that's just because like your personality, you're more curious and you want to just go out and right?
Oh, I know.
I feel like that's kind of the same for me too. Like I just naturally want to go out and explore, different things. But
yeah, I mean, I'll tell you this: if like there's folks out there that like want to hack the like how to get well known, and I'll tell you exactly how to do it. Don't do what I've done, because like that's like the journeyman's track. If you want to get to the front of the line, write about dashboards, write about data visualization, talk about AI constantly, and just hit on kind of like the sugary sweet topics that people want to hear about, and just hit it over and over and over. And that's you actually see some people out there doing this type of stuff, and it's because they play to where people care about, and it's like, well, I just crave more stuff. Sorry.
Yeah, you get bored after a while. I want to see what else is going on out there, and I want to write about it.
I think some of that's just at bats too, right? Like if you post like twice a month, you're in the top 1% of LinkedIn posters or something like that.
Absolutely.
Is that right? I didn't know that statistic. Huh?
Yeah, it's a made-up stat, but
yeah. They say 80% of stats are made up on the spot, right?
It's directionally correct, anyway.
It's directionally correct. Yeah, come on, guys.
Sue me. What's up?
Well, Scott, do you want to hit us with the last one?
Yeah, this is called influencing choice without awareness. So a few weeks back, we had an article that dealt with how people perceive magic, like magicians, and like, do they think it's like magical thinking, this sort of stuff. And I don't really care about the outcomes of this article. I really thought the methods are funny. So the question is, like, we make choices all day, every day. But how much agency do we actually have in these choices? So you would essentially like hide food from yourself, and like therefore you're not going to eat, or it's going to be like out of sight, out of mind. Cole and I were talking about this before the pod. Like different artists that talk about beer, you're more likely to go drink a beer at the show. Like they love that sort of thing. But what this article did is they had a professional magician do like essentially a pick a card trick. And the way it works is they essentially display one card for a longer duration than the other cards, and that becomes the target card. So in this study, they showed that it was a super high number. 98% of the people, the subjects that they did this to, they picked the target card. And only, 81% thought that they had agency over it. They thought that they had free choice in the system. They replicated this in a laboratory study, had a much lower success rate, but still, they essentially show that, we don't have as much free will as we think, and you can be manipulated relatively easily, even when you know that it's happening.
Yeah. I find that incredibly not surprising at all. And I think this is probably one of those human behavior pieces, again, where there's just some dissonance around how much agency we actually have, and how much we understand our own consciousness, etc. That doesn't surprise me. Everything we're just puppets manipulated, right? Social media, Facebook, like
oh my god, the social
right?
influencers are insane, and everyone thinks that they're making independent choices. Like probably hardly any of the choices you make are independent.
I bet. I honestly bet barely any. Like there's been some seed planted somewhere that ultimately, again, whether it was conscious or unconscious, that
Yeah.
What was that movie that was where they went like 2 or 3 layers deep? It was like
Inception.
Inception.
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
like Inception, right? To a certain extent, right?
You never go 3 layers. I can't remember the quote.
Yeah,
like
that's a great movie. That was a great movie. I watched it recently. Like it's top of mind. There you go, right?
Dream within a dream.
Dream within a dream.
Yeah.
They went super deep.
I haven't seen I haven't seen a magician in a long time. Definitely not like a pick a card up in my face.
Well, I love this line of research, first of all. I've had this thought for a long time that one of the things that psychology research in particular has gotten wrong is they have not reached out to the magician community, the mentalist community, the stand-up comedy community, all these communities that have figured out like a key unlock in the human psyche that has not made it into the research sphere as much. And so I love that you can essentially, use this to figure out the cognition of human beings and kind of these key unlocker, probably like the tarot card readers, all of those folks know something about humanity that we don't know. And I think that there is a really great opportunity there. The other thing that I thought was interesting about this is if you want to mess up a magician's trick, choose the card that they're not expecting you to choose.
There's some that are more salient than others. Yeah.
So basically, like whatever comes to your mind, don't do that. Just choose something else.
Exactly. Like wait for them to flip through the whole deck and then just choose the card on the top layer. And it's like you're going to totally mess up the trick.
I like what you're saying though. It's like people shit on the MBTI, but that thing is popular as hell. Why? How can we bottle that? And utilize it?
Absolutely. I love that. In colors-based assessments too. People love those for some reason. Well, this has been so much fun having you here, Ross. We didn't actually hit on it that much, so I want to promote it here, but Ross has a version 2 of his book, Strategic Workforce Planning. We have just scraped the surface of some of the insights that Ross has to give in the workforce planning space. And as we established earlier, this is like a key conversation that's happening everywhere. You should be digging into this. So, Ross, thank you so much for joining us. I want people to go out and buy your book. But before I give you the last word, Scott, any final words for Ross before we wrap this thing up?
Ross, this is super fun. Go Flames. Go Flames.
Go Flames. Let's just make the playoffs, man. Let's just make the playoffs. That's all I want.
I think they can do it this year. I think they can do it.
I'm hopeful. They were close last year, but so go Flames. We'll lead with that. You know what, guys? This has been great. I've been on several podcasts this year. This is definitely, without doubt, the most fun one. Just naturally flowing conversation. Just kind of want to go grab some beers now. So unfortunately we're different locations, but thanks for having me. Yeah, again, book. Second edition. I think some of the big highlights in terms of what are in the book are everything we sort of talked about today. There's a lot kind of on how we think about workforce planning and Gen AI. We talk really deep on some of the skills-based workforce planning. I tried to really make things a little bit more actionable in this book. I've had 6-7 years worth of feedback to kind of say, hey, like, how do you actually tactically step-by-step do this type of a process? There's a bunch on operational workforce planning, on leadership in this space, and then sort of like the future of the function. So a lot of the stuff that we touched on today, but it's been fun to write, and it's interesting, Cole, to your point. Like, there's so much more that I learned in this research process that I want to kind of write about now, and go deeper on. But and I think the only other thing is that I'm also going live with the website where I'm starting to kind of publish my own content in a blog. Talent Stratify, STRAFIY. It will be something that you can access also with content and learnings. But otherwise, thanks, guys. I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to come and join you guys in this great discussion.
Well, you heard it here. Ross is already starting on V3 of the book, so he's got that going. And check out Talent Stratify. But you've been listening to Directionally Correct, a People Analytics podcast with Cole and Scott, and today's guest, Ross Sparkman. Thanks for joining us, Ross.
Thanks, guys.